Diane, let's go first to you. What is the job of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, and why are you the best person for the job?
The job of the superintendent, and I wish I could tell everybody here that it comes with a magic wand to just make the federal government get out of our education system and return it to our children. But basically, oops, I'm on leash here. The job of the superintendent is number one, to superintend the schools of Arizona and to make sure that the schools of Arizona are doing the jobs that you want for your children and your grandchildren. Now, how is that accomplished? It's accomplished in part through your locally elected school boards. And right now where we have a problem is with an appointed board rather than an elected board. You only have one elected voice on that board. And right now they are letting everybody imaginable get between your locally elected representatives, the people that come from your neighborhoods, to decide how your schools are run, and the State Board of Education. We have Expect More Arizona, we have First Things First, we have the Chamber of Commerce, we have all of these people who have special interests and special reasons, money, for wanting to get in this fray and getting to decide these things. We need a leader in our State Department of Ed that will get these people out of the way and stop giving unelected people so much power over your children. You know, we have a system right now where our education system isn't asking what we expect for our children and what we want for our children. They're telling us what we must accept from them for our children. And in my opinion, that's what the decision you're going to make in this election. Are you going to let bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., or bureaucrats on Jefferson Street decide what's best for your children? Or are we going to take back control of our education system for our children to make sure they're educated to be free-thinking, free-governing Americans? Thank you.
The job, unfortunately, of the superintendent right now has become defeating Obama's liberal education agenda. That's become job one. And nobody's been more effective across the nation than I have. We've had students crossing the border, illegal immigrants crossing the border, attending schools at taxpayer expense. I had to do major enforcement actions to put a halt to that. We returned over $1 million to taxpayers when those students were attending those schools at taxpayer expense. We put an end to it. When I came into office, I had the ethnic studies controversy. And I had to make sure that I won that battle. And I spent 6 months getting ready for that war. We went through all the lesson plans and organized them to present the evidence exhibits. I selected the expert witnesses that would testify in the trial. I selected the lawyer who would conduct that battle. Stage by stage, I got ready. 6 months. A lot of people were criticizing me. They wanted fast action. Well, when we were ready, we went in and mopped the deck with them. I defeated them in state court. I defeated them in federal court on appeal because I did such a good job in state court. And we're continuing to defeat them in that fight down there. So the border enforcement, the ethnic studies, and then there was the waiver. The waiver is a tough thing. You're negotiating with the entire apparatus of the federal government. We ended up with one of the best, if not the best, waivers in the nation because of my knowledge of basic education research. We were able to keep them continuously on the defensive. We shoved back the entire Elementary and Secondary Education Act of the federal government and rid our schools of all that bureaucracy and paperwork. So we've done a great job of defeating the federal government and Obama's liberal education agenda. We're going to get in more to this Common Core controversy, much more complex than some of the simplistic speeches you've been hearing out on the campaign trail. Just as I got ready to fight the battle on ethnic studies and win that, I am now ready to fight the Common Core battle and win that. I've seen the lay of the land, I've laid it out, I've created a strategy. We're ready to win again. And I will compare my win-loss records when it comes to conservative victories with any elected official over the last 30 years. I am almost undefeated. Thank you.
Ms. Douglas, any rebuttal or cross-examination?
Yes, exactly. Well, I would like to refute the ethnic studies was actually a that was brought, a suit that was brought and basically dropped in Mr. Huppenthal's lap by his predecessor. Laws were passed to make sure those ethnic studies were stopped, and it stopped, and I would question why, when the suit was already, and why we had an attorney general who could have fought that suit, why a new attorney was hired at taxpayer expense. But talking about, and I understand that Tucson is back at it, and they're back at bilingual education also, but when you talk about No Child Left Behind waivers, you have to realize in order to get those waivers, we had to agree to accept Common Core. We had to agree to turn over the standards and the education of our children to the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. And as far as the waivers having much meaning, here is a letter that our Department of Education received, the Honorable John Huppenthal, on November 25th of 2013, that basically said, if we didn't have our, I believe it was our teacher evaluation in line, the way they wanted it, those waivers are gone. So that's how tenuous that the waivers are, and that's how strong a grasp Washington wants to keep on our children and our education system.
You're entitled to your opinions, but you're not entitled to your facts. The fact of the case is, when I was in the legislature, I was chairman of the Education Committee. And the ethnic studies law was put through my committee. I passed that through my committee, and it went into law. So I created the groundwork for that. And when I got into office, there was no case prepared. There was no evidentiary exhibits. There were no experts selected. We did all of that work, and it was meticulous, grinding work to get prepared for that battle. All of it. It was my team that prepared the exhibits, that organized the lesson plans, that selected the national experts that were going to come in to win that case. So the idea that that case was gift wrapped for me is a complete fabrication. We had to do our due diligence. And people who have been familiar with me over time know the incredible depth that I go into in doing research on education research, basic research, to be ready for battle, any kind of battle when it comes to public policy. I did 212 pieces of legislation as a legislator. That's an incredible workhorse. Do you know who was number 2 in Arizona history? 167. We cleaned out massive amounts of bureaucracy, massive amounts of regulation by working every single day, bringing experts together and saying, how can we make these laws better? That's my track record. Working, working, working. Not one press release in 18 years. Just work. Thank you.